I thought my sister Alyssa was just being dramatic when she announced Karen Delaney was stepping in to save the day starting tonight. Everyone clapped like she had donated a kidney instead of inviting the neighborhood dictator into our living room. Then Karen's slick partner Derek slid a folder toward my dad. I work in real estate compliance, so I recognized the paperwork immediately. That folder wasn't about helping family. It was about taking the house. Too bad for them. The house wasn't mine anymore. My name is Riley Adams, and if I had known what was waiting for me at the dinner table in Willow Creek Estates, I might have kept driving past the HOA gate and never looked back. I was 34, cruising my reliable sedan down the tree-lined streets of our picture-perfect Ohio subdivision. The kind of place that looks like a magazine cover until you read the 47-page rulebook. The GPS chirped 10 minutes to Maple Row, but my stomach had been tightening for the last 40 miles. This was supposed to be a simple family reunion potluck, a phrase that in my house usually meant an ambush wrapped in potato salad and passive-aggressive HOA gossip. The house on Maple Row was exactly as I remembered, two-story colonial, white siding gleaming under the HOA-mandated soft white paint code. American flag exactly 1.5 inches shorter than Karen's last violation notice had demanded. I pulled into the driveway and spotted Karen's gleaming black SUV parked dead center, aggressive as a parking ticket itself. That had to be her. Karen Delaney had a type, expensive, loud, and convinced the entire neighborhood revolved around her pastel cardigan and pearl necklace. I killed the engine and sat there gripping the wheel, inhaling stale coffee in dread. Before stepping out, I made a mental note to fix the porch light that was flickering again. Old habit. I was always the fixer, the one who noticed cracks in the foundation while everyone else admired the perfectly edged lawn. When I opened the front door, the smell of roasted garlic hit me first, followed by expensive perfume and a faint metallic tang of fresh HOA violation stickers. The house looked the same, 30 years of family clutter, but the atmosphere was brittle, like the air itself was waiting for Karen to declare something out of code. My mother Darlene rushed from the kitchen in an apron over her Sunday dress. Smile stretched, so tight it looked painful. "Riley, you made it," she cried, pulling me into a hug that felt more like a restraint order. "We were just waiting for you." Everyone's in the dining room. In the dining room, the good china was out, gold-rimmed plates we weren't allowed to touch as kids. Dad Frank sat at the head, looking smaller than ever, shoulders hunched like he was bracing for another fine. Alyssa sat to his right, hair blown out, cream blouse, probably costing more than my car, glowing like she'd just won HOA President of the Year. Next to her was Derek Vaughn, Karen's business partner and latest arm candy. Handsome in that generic corporate way. Teeth too white, suit too perfect. His eyes scanned the crown molding and built-in cabinets like he was already calculating square footage for resale. "Hello, stranger," Alyssa said, voice dripping saccharine. "Glad you could tear yourself away from the city." "I work in compliance," I replied, taking my seat. "Not exactly glamorous." Derek chuckled dryly. "Compliance sounds thrilling." "It keeps the lights on," I said, unfolding my napkin. The dinner started in stilted small talk about weather and traffic, while Mom tried to steer toward happy memories. Dad barely spoke, carving his meat into tiny squares. I watched Derek. He wasn't eating. He was appraising, tapping the mahogany table, checking chair stability, glancing toward the staircase. I spent 40 hours a week spotting title fraud. This man wasn't admiring childhood memories. He was inventorying equity. The shift happened when the wine was poured. Alyssa cleared her throat. "I have some exciting news," she announced, beaming. Derek placed a hand on her forearm. "We know how hard the upkeep has been lately. The HOA fees, the violations, everything. It's just too much for two people." She paused for dramatic effect. So Karen and I have decided to step up. We're moving and starting tonight to handle all the compliance. Silence. Then Mom clapped frantically. Oh, that's wonderful. Karen's so generous. She's always been like family. Dad repeated, moving in like he'd misheard. Alyssa softened her voice. Derek can commute from here, and I can help with the rules. Family helps family. Right? Mom turned to me, eyes pleading. Isn't that great? Riley? Karen's so generous. I stared at Alyssa. She was glowing, but her eyes flicked to Derek in that quick conspiratorial glance. This wasn't spontaneous help. This was a plan. And Karen Delaney, the woman who had fined me $250 last month for my flag being 1 inch too patriotic, was suddenly our savior. Derek reached down and lifted a thick leather portfolio. He slid it directly onto the table beside Dad's plate, pushing the green beans aside with a dull, authoritative thud. Just a few papers to get the ball rolling, he said breezily. Administrative stuff, so we can start taking care of the bills and the maintenance immediately. My heart hammered. I knew what utility authorization looked like, one sheet. This folder was an inch thick. I leaned forward. The top document peeked out. Quitclaim deed. Below it, authorization to transfer management rights to Willow Creek HOA entity. Blood drained from my face. They weren't moving in to help. They were moving in to take the title, disguised as HOA compliance. Karen herself wasn't even here yet, but her shadow already filled the room. Alyssa sipped her wine and smiled at me over the rim. You look pale. Riley, you don't have to worry about any of this. I know you're not really savvy with house stuff or HOA rules. Derek and I will manage everything. The condescension was thick enough to choke on. She was painting me as the incompetent little sister, the one who'd been cited 3 times this year for excessive holiday enthusiasm and non-approved mulch color. I looked at the folder again. That inch-thick stack represented hundreds of thousands in equity, Dad's 40 years of steel mill labor, Mom's retirement dream, and Derek Vaughn, who'd been in our lives less than a year, was trying to slide it into his pocket under the guise of being the perfect HOA-friendly son-in-law. Dad reached for his glasses. He was going to look. I took a sip of water, forcing my hand steady. That's very generous of you. Alyssa, I said, voice calm like I was denying a developer's permit in a boardroom. Alyssa blinked, surprised by my lack of fight. Derek nudged the folder closer. The sooner we get this sorted, the sooner we can handle the roof estimates. I noticed some shingles missing when we pulled up. He uncapped an expensive fountain pen and placed it on top. Dad stared at it. Tired. So tired. I felt adrenaline surge cold and sharp. This was a raid disguised as neighborly love. They'd rehearsed the emotional manipulation, the immediate solution. They were bypassing discussion and going straight for execution. To understand why I sat there calmly sprinkling salt on my potatoes while my sister and Karen's partner plotted a coup, you have to understand the architecture of the Adams family inside Willow Creek Estates. In every house, there's a foundation and a facade. In ours, Alyssa was the curb appeal, the fresh paint, the manicured lawn, the reason neighbors slowed down. I was the plumbing. Necessary, but if you noticed me, something had gone wrong. Growing up, the narrative was written before I could read. Alyssa was the golden child who demanded oxygen. I was the one expected to open the window. Mom's backhanded compliments perfected the art. Alyssa just knows how to live. She is spirit. And you, Riley, you're very sturdy. Sensible. You don't need much, do you? It wasn't a question. It was a command. The roles calcified. Alyssa brought drama. I fixed it quietly. If I scraped my knee, I bandaged it myself, because tutors and attention were budgeted for Alyssa's cheer camp and designer shoes. When I left at 18, I didn't look back, college on loans. Double shifts at a diner that smelled like grease forever. I climbed in compliance auditing while they still saw me as Riley the struggler. I never corrected them. It bought me freedom. Alyssa turned failure into spectator sport. 3 broken engagements. Each time the family rallied. Mom setting up the guest room. Dad writing checks that drained their savings. Until the HOA stepped in with its own brand of robbery. For years ago, everything broke. The furnace died. The roof leaked. Dad needed hip surgery. Then the financials. Credit cards maxed to cover rising HOA assessments. Karen Delaney had just been elected president on a tough love platform. She started fining us for everything. Grass 0.25 inch too tall. Flag 1 inch too tall. Christmas lights left up one day past January 5th. The fines snowballed into liens. The bank noticed. Pre-foreclosure notice arrived. I didn't call. I treated it like a case file. I created Blue Fern Holdings LLC, generic, corporate, invisible. I bought the non-performing note and the HOA liens outright with every penny I'd saved. Then, acting as Blue Fern, I sent an official letter. Interest slashed to 0. Past dues deferred. Just a nominal maintenance fee. Mom called it a miracle. Alyssa told everyone at the country club she'd made a few calls to finance friends and save the house. The legend of Saint Alyssa grew. Meanwhile, I quietly paid the difference every month from my checking account. I filed a protective lien so massive that nobody, not predatory lenders, not entitled HOA presidents, could sell or refinance without Blue Fern signing off. The house was locked down to protect my parents from themselves. And from Karen. Now Karen's partner sat across from me tapping that folder like he was stealing candy. He had no idea he was trying to steal a heavily encumbered asset from the woman who specialized in fraud detection. I took another bite of potato. Dry, but I barely tasted it. My mind raced. They were moving in tonight, establishing residency fast. Possession is 9/10 of the law in real estate scams. They assumed the house was Frank and Darlene's to give. They assumed wrong. The plates were cleared, but the appetite at the table had only grown hungrier. Derek leaned back, swirling the last of his wine. Casual slouch, calculated to look like friendly advice between men. "Frank, you're looking a little pale tonight," he said, voice dropping into faux concern. "At your age, you can't be too careful. We were looking at some actuarial tables, just for planning, and it's crazy how fast things turn. That's why we want to get this paperwork started tonight. If we restructure under a new HOA-compliant management entity, we can pull some equity, create a safety net. Cash on hand. Takes the pressure off." He made it sound so simple. Refinance. Cash out. Enjoy. He skipped the part where adding Karen's shell company as co-signer would let them drain the equity while the HOA fines mysteriously vanished for them. Dad looked at the folder. "Refinance? We barely saved the house last time." Derek waved a hand. "That's exactly why you need us. You don't have to mess with it. I speak their language. All you need to do is sign a few places to authorize me as your representative." While Derek worked, Dad, Alyssa ran her flank on Mom. "Sit down, Mama. When we move and you're not lifting a finger, I'll take over the kitchen, the grocery shopping. You're done with the drudgery." She paused by the key hook, fingers brushing the spare set like she was marking territory. I needed air. I stood, grabbing plates. In the kitchen, Alyssa rummaged through cupboards. "Where do you keep the good cups?" "Riley, top shelf. Left side, same place since 1995. She laughed brittle. "Well, I guess I'll have to reorganize when I settle in. Things need a refresh." I pushed open the screen door to the back porch. Cold air hit me. Through the window, I saw Dad's head in his hands. Then I heard Derek's voice from the side yard. Low. "Urgent." Stripped of warmth. "Yeah, I know the timeline," he was saying. "We're moving in tonight. I'll have utility bills in my name within 30 days. That establishes residency." "No, the underwriting is tight. They won't release the funds without clear title transfer. That's why I need the quitclaim. If I get the title, we can leverage the whole property. valued at 300 grand. Even with the existing debt, there's 100 grand of equity we can tap. My stomach turned. He was already spending the money. Then the sentence that turned my blood to ice. Look, if he wiggles out tonight, we'll do it the other way. I have his signature from the birthday card. It's distinct. I can replicate it if push comes to shove. You said you had a guy for the notary. Conspiracy to commit forgery. Right there on the side lawn of my childhood home, under the HOA's watchful eye. I slipped back inside before he returned. Alyssa was pouring coffee. Derek walked in beaming, rubbing his hands. Fresh air does a body good. But we should get back to business. Back at the table, the folder was now directly in front of Dad. Derek uncapped the pen again. Okay, Frank, let's get this done so you can sleep easy tonight. Alyssa adjusted the pen so the grip faced Dad's right hand. Just sign it, Daddy. For us. For the family. Dad picked up the pen, fingers trembling. Dad, I said sharply. Everyone froze. Alyssa snapped. What? Do not sign anything you haven't read thoroughly. Mom slammed her coffee cup down. Riley, please. Why do you have to be so difficult? Karen's trying to help us. She's moving her whole life here to take care of us, and you're acting like she's a criminal. The accusation hit like a slap. I was the one who had quietly paid every lien for 4 years, while Karen took public credit and fined me for breathing wrong. And I was the difficult one. Derek smirked. Go on, Riley. Tell us why Frank shouldn't trust his own family. I forced my shoulders to relax. You're right. Mom, I'm sorry. I'm just protective. The tension drained from Mom's shoulders. Alyssa smirked. Derek nodded, satisfied he'd put the little dog back in its kennel. But I added softly, Dad, just make sure you understand the terms. That's all. I wasn't arguing. I was waiting. People like Derek and Karen don't stop when they get what they want. They get greedy. And when they get greedy, they get sloppy. Dad lowered the pen to the paper. I stood up before anyone could object. Shoot, my reading glasses. I must have left them in the glove compartment. The print on this is so small, and I've had a headache all day. Alyssa rolled her eyes. Just use Dad's. Dad's prescription is like looking through a fishbowl. I laughed self-deprecatingly. I'll be right back. Don't sign anything until I get back. I grabbed the stack of papers I've been holding, the ones with mismatched fonts and the blank signature page with the faint pencil tick, and tucked them under my arm like it was nothing. Derek barked. Hey, leave the papers here. I'm just taking them to the car so I can read under the map light while I find my glasses, I said without breaking stride. I want to be efficient, right? Time is money. As soon as the front door clicked shut, I sprinted to my car. Hands shaking but steady. I photographed every discrepancy. Font changes, rights of survivorship clause. The loose signature page that could be stapled to anything. I fired the images to my attorney Marianne with one line, urgent. Frank indeed. Floater signature page. Classic bait and switch. Her reply came in 30 seconds. This is predatory. Do not let him sign that specific page. I grabbed a pair of sunglasses, the only glasses I had, and shoved them in my pocket. I walked back, gravel crunching loud enough for them to hear me coming. Let Derek have a moment to sweat. When I re-entered the dining room, Dad was holding the pen, tip hovering inches above the paper. Derek leaned over him pointing. Press hard. It's a carbon copy. I cleared my throat. Dad froze. Relief washed over his face. He set the pen down. Derek's eyes darted to my empty hands. Got them. I patted my pocket and placed the stack back on the table, smoothing the pages. I looked at Derek and let a small, defeated smile play on my lips. I looked at the numbers. And honestly, you're right about the cash flow. The interest rate is aggressive, but if it clears the other debts, I can see why you want to do it. Derek blinked. He hadn't expected agreement. A slow grin spread. Exactly. I told you. Riley. It's just math. Alyssa clapped. See? I told you she would come around. Mom looked like she might cry with relief. I smiled at Dad warmly. Yes, Dad, if this is the plan, we should move forward. Derek pumped his fist. All right, let's get this done. Sign on the line. Frank. But, I added, voice hardening just a fraction. Since this involves the family's only asset, we need to do it correctly. We can't have Dad signing loose pieces of paper with mismatched fonts. They'll get kicked back by the county clerk in 2 seconds. Derek's smile faltered. It's fine, Riley. It's a standard draft. It's sloppy, I said. And if we're going to trust you with the family estate, Derek, we need you to be professional. I reached into my bag. So, I took the liberty of calling a mobile notary. She's a friend of mine. She's parked around the corner. Derek went pale. You did what? I called a notary. I repeated cheerfully. If we're signing tonight, let's make it official. No tick marks on the notary block. No pending stamps. We do it live, right here at the table. That way the funds get released faster. Right. I tapped my phone. She's walking up the driveway now. The doorbell rang, sharp, loud, authoritative. Derek looked like a trapped animal. I smiled cold and hard. Open the door. Derek, let's get those signatures. I walked past him, smelling his cologne and the sour undercurrent of fear. Dana Holt stood on the porch, not just a notary, but a forensic document examiner who worked with the Financial Crimes Unit. She carried her notary bag like tactical gear. Good evening. I'm here for the signing. I let her in. Right this way. The parties are eager to proceed. The moment Dana entered, the room shifted from soap opera to procedural. She placed her bag down, pulled out her bound journal and embossment stamp, and looked at us with the dispassionate gaze of a surgeon. Please place your government-issued photo IDs on the table. All parties signing or witnessing. Derek huffed. This is ridiculous. We're all family here. Dana didn't blink. Identity fraud is the fastest growing crime in the country. ID. Now. Derek slapped his license down. Dana examined each card under the light, taking her agonizingly slow time. When she reached Derek's, she paused, tilted it, wrote something in her log. The scratch of her pen sounded like nails in a coffin. She picked up the stack and started reading from the front. Derek's foot tapped frantically. After 2 minutes, she looked up. This document has no page numbers. The font changes on page 3. The notary block on the signature page has a pre-marked indicator and no document title. She held up the loose page. If this page is signed, it could be attached to anything. A will, a confession, a sale deed for a different property. Derek shouted. It goes with the loan mod. His voice cracked. Why is everyone being so difficult? It's just paper. Dana corrected coldly. It's a legal instrument. And as a notary, I cannot notarize a signature on a loose leaf not clearly bound to the parent document. It puts the signer at risk of fraud. She looked at Dad. Mr. Adams, do you understand what this gentleman is asking you to sign? Dad looked terrified. He says it's to lower the bills, to get some cash out. Dana read Clause 7 aloud. The borrower acknowledges that they are entering into this transaction of their own free will without duress and understands that this transaction may result in the loss of equity and, in the event of default, the loss of the primary residence. She lowered the paper. Mr. Adams, do you understand that if you sign this and payments are not made, you will be evicted from this home? Derek slammed his hand on the table. Well, for God's sake, this is boilerplate. Frank, you know me. You know Alyssa. We're not going to evict you. We're family. He grabbed the papers from Dana's hand. We don't need to read the fine print. We just need the signature. The rates expire at midnight. He flipped to the blank signature page and shoved it in front of Dad. Just sign it. Frank, sign the damn line so we can save your house. Dad picked up the pen, tip touching paper. In that second I moved, I placed my palm flat on the signature line. No. Derek's eyes widened with shock and rage. Get your hand off the paper. Riley. No. I repeated quietly, voice filling the room. We're not skipping the reading. Alyssa cried. Riley, stop it. You're ruining everything. I kept my eyes locked on Derek. We're going to read every single word. Derek, every clause, every fine print disclaimer. Because if this is really to help them, you should have no problem explaining exactly how they lose their house in Clause 7. Derek stood, chair scraping. Who do you think you are? You're a nobody. You're just the jealous little sister who can't stand that we're making moves. You don't own this house. Dana's hand moved quietly across her logbook, recording every word. Derek roared, Frank, pick up the pen. Sign the paper now, or we walk. Alyssa and I walk out that door, and we leave you to drown in this money pit. Is that what you want? Do you want to die here broke? It was pure distilled coercion. Dad looked at me, eyes wet. Riley. I looked at Dana and gave her the tiniest nod. Dana cleared her throat. Mr. Adams, do you feel that you're being forced to sign this document against your will? Dad stammered. I don't want them to leave. That is not the question, Dana said sharply. Are you signing because you want to transfer your property or because you're afraid of the consequences if you do not? Derek leaned in, screaming, It's just a house. Frank, it's just a stupid pile of bricks. Sign the paper. It doesn't matter what it says. Just sign it so I can get the money. The silence was absolute. He had admitted the motive in front of a court-admissible witness while physically intimidating a senior citizen. Dana finished writing, slammed her book shut like a gunshot, and stood. She slid the fraudulent stack into her bag. I am officially terminating this session and entering into the record this affidavit of observation. I have witnessed Mr. Derek Vaughn attempt to coerce, intimidate, and explicitly state his intent was to access funds for personal use. This is attempted deed fraud, elder abuse, and a felony. Derek's face drained of color. He realized he had lost the war. I picked up the pen Derek had brought and capped it. I think we're done with the signing. Derek whispered, You set me up. I looked toward the front door because I knew who was waiting. The text Dana had sent under the table had 3 words. Subject is hostile. Go. Heavy authoritative knock. 3 sharp raps. Police. Open up. Officer Lucas Brandt and his partner stepped in. Uniforms imposing. Derek Vaughn. Derek flinched. I turned to him softly. I told you. Derek, we have to do it by the book. And now the book is about to be thrown at you. The room exploded into chaos. But I wasn't looking at Derek. I was looking at Karen Delaney herself, because the door hadn't fully closed. She had just arrived for this celebration, pearls gleaming, ready to bask in her triumph. Her face went from smug to ashen in one heartbeat. I reached into my bag one last time and pulled out the certified copy of the deed. You kept saying you needed Dad's signature. You kept saying you needed the quitclaim to transfer title. Yeah, so what? I shook my head slowly. No, Derek, it isn't his house. The room went dead quiet. Alyssa whispered, Of course it is. We grew up here. I looked straight at Karen. 4 years ago, when the HOA was about to foreclose with your liens, when you were telling everyone at the club how you saved the family, I was the one writing the checks. I bought the note. I bought the liens. I transferred the title into the Maple Row Family Trust, and I am the sole trustee. I placed the stamped document on the table. The house does not belong to Frank and Darlene Adams. It belongs to the trust. And here's the thing about the trust. Karen, it has a very specific clause. The property cannot be used as collateral for any loan, ever. It cannot be refinanced. It cannot be leveraged. Even if you had forced Dad to sign, even if you had forged his name perfectly, it would have been worthless. You were trying to steal a car that had no engine. Karen's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Derek lunged for the bag. Dana moved with surprising speed. Do not touch me. My phone buzzed. Lucas, we heard the threat. Entering now. I stepped closer to Karen. You spent months planning this. You risked your freedom, and it was all for nothing. You were checkmated before you even sat down at the board. Officer Lucas read Derica's rights. Handcuffs clicked. Alyssa sobbed, trying to distance herself, but the female officer was already guiding her out for questioning. Karen stood frozen, pearls suddenly looking cheap under the harsh dining room light. Dad reached up and covered my hand with his. You saved us, he whispered. Not her. You. Mom looked at me with shame and awe, realizing she had been polishing the fake diamond while ignoring the real one. I gathered the papers. Mary Ann will call you tomorrow to explain how the trust works. You're safe. Nobody can take this from you. Not a bank. Not Derek. Not even Karen. I picked up my bag. Mom pleaded, Riley, please stay. We need to talk. I looked at them, two small figures in a large safe house that was finally truly theirs. Family is not where you take from each other until there's nothing left. If you want us to be a family again, we have to learn how to live in the truth. I walked out into the cool night air. The rain had stopped. The sky was clearing. I got into my car and started the engine. I didn't look back at the house on Maple Row. I didn't need to. I knew it was still standing. The foundation was solid. And for the first time in my life, I knew exactly who I was. I was not the invisible daughter. I was the owner. And the rent had finally been paid in full.